Hey guys, welcome to BP, the Bible Perspective, deconstructing the case for Trump as the right choice. Now, before you get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments welcome. This is part 3 of our deconstructing Apostle Alton Williams' case for Donald Trump as the right choice. Now, he's going to be. We'll probably get into it in this video. That he's not going to ever tell you that he's telling people to vote for Trump. That's parsing words because remember the title. The title of the video is "Why Trump," but he puts a question mark on it. Okay, we all do that when we want to make certain points or not say things. And the reason why is because you can avoid a lot of unnecessary conflict with the government or YouTube or something like that. So I get that. But for sure, make no mistakes that he is pushing Donald Trump as the right choice. He's going to do it right here in this video. Okay? But he's also pushing the Republican platform, the conservative Republican platform. And with all of the talking points, my issue is if you're going to do that as an apostle of Jesus Christ, you're going to push one agenda, but in other words, you will condemn the sins of one and then what? Completely ignore and in some case justify the sins of the other. That's why we're deconstructing this video. One of his primary sources is from, I think, a person, he said Donald Jackson, I believe it was, and I don't know who she is, but that seemed to be his primary source for this video. He said he has given other sources. I haven't seen them. And what is always interesting about, I'm going to say blacks, they could be very susceptible to conspiracy theories. With no, they don't demand any kind of validation, fact checking. If you go back and remember during the COVID, a lot of blacks didn't want the vaccine because they said, well, remember the Tuskegee Institute experiment, which was apples and oranges. And at the same time, they wasn't even dealing with the fact of how many African Americans were dying because of COVID. Unless you then believe the further lies that that COVID wasn't real, people wasn't really dying of COVID, whatever. So as he's making his push for the Republican platform, using the talking points, my criticism is that he is disseminating misinformation, and that's disappointing when ministers, and that's my point. I'll say this again: whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, it's just opposite sides of the same evil coin. So, as Christians, why would we be for either? And as the cycle goes, and as I tell people all the time, if God was on your side, then why didn't he give Trump a second term? For that matter, when Trump was in office and he had control of both houses for 2 years, why didn't he put into law all of these Republican reforms that they are decrying now? He did stack the Supreme Court deck. He's put a lot of judges in. But why didn't he, these primary talking points, why didn't he do it? He had the House. He could have done it. They did other stuff they wanted to do. But mostly, how does this fit with the Great Commission where he tells us to go and be a witness to all the world? How is saving America have to do with anything of preaching the gospel, witnessing Jesus to the world, being fishers of men? All right, let's get back to the video. All right, here we go. Do I want to go back a little bit? Let me go back a little bit.
And try to help everybody else. So we need to take, in order to be a blessing to other citizens from other nations, we got to take care of America first.
Now, here's a question, my brother. If you're going to say America first, will you then will you protest any type of aid to Israel? That's rhetorical because I know he won't. He absolutely would say, no, we can give money to them. And again, when you look at the economy, how is America not strong? Okay, how is America not strong? How are we not taking care of our own? But again, here's my point. You have to be able to say, let's look at all the facts. Let's look at all the facts why the homeless are homeless, why the poor are poor, why certain neighborhoods are depressed. Let's look at all of the reasons. You just can't say, well, because under Biden, our country is horrible. That's the lie that the Republicans slash and conservatives push out. And by the way, they're not hurting. They're not hurting at all. So who's actually hurting? If the employment is at its lowest, who's actually hurting? Okay.
Make sure America is strong. And that was one of the policy areas that President Trump promoted, but of course they called him racist as a result. The Democratic Party, I'm going to say it tonight so that you won't be confused, is the Antichrist Party. It is anti-family. And I'm going to say this, you're not going to believe it, but it is anti-black folk. You are only needed for votes. You are only loved when it's time to get your votes.
Well, let me ask the question again. What have the Republican Party, what have they offered black people? Trump was in office for 4 years. Again, I think he's going to address some of that, and we'll deal with that, when he addresses it. But if you're saying that the Democrats haven't done anything, what are the Republicans? What are they even proposing? In this whole campaign cycle, what did they propose? What did the Republicans say they would do with the black people?
No real.
I'm just saying, what have they said? What have they proposed that they would do for black people? All right.
Care about you. And see, we still stuck, and we got that thing ingrained in us that this is the party for the black man. It is not. The party has changed.
Now, again, he's talking about now, so the politics. Because here's the point: if you tell me that the Democrat Party is not the party for the black man, tell me how the Republican Party is the party for the black people. Now, I'm going to wait till he says something, and I'm going to address just as an example. I think he's going to say something in just a moment.
Black people, really, to be honest with you, have never been the priority. They have only been used. Go back and look at the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We've all given Democrats credit for that. But
because it was a Democratic president that signed the bill in. It wasn't the Republican Party that signed the bill in. Now watch the bait and switch. Watch the misinformation right here. Johnson signed the bill, but then he also decried that he would lose the South, which he did. Those racist Dixiecrat jumped ship to the Republican. They became Republicans. Nixon capitalized on that just a few years excuse me, later with what he called the Southern strategy.
Johnson was the one that wanted to pass it, but he couldn't get enough Democrat votes to pass it. It was the Republicans that pushed and passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Go tonight and look it up. Look at Wiki, W-I-K-I, put it in there, 1960. He couldn't even get enough Democrats to vote for it. So he had to go to Republican senators in order to help him out. They are anti-life. The party pushes stuff that's anti-life. It pushes anti-morality because most of their policies are immoral, that pushes sexual perversion. It is the party of death. Why do you say that, Pastor? If you go back, you'll see slavery started with the Democratic Party. And we saw many slaves that died. We also saw under Jim Crow. Jim Crow was established by Democrats. And we saw under Jim Crow how many were hung and lynched. And then we are seeing today how many babies. African American people are giving up their future because they won't have, in another 15, 20 years, they won't have enough people because they have cut their birth rates off and have.
Now, I do realize that he is confining this argument to the black community, but the whites are crying like I don't know what because of not reproducing. And by the way, if you are condemning the the Democrats, for things such as abortion, did not the president's wife just came out full blown pro-choice in support of abortion? This is the man you're saying, why not Trump? Why Trump? And his wife is pro-abortion. Will she affect Trump? Well, if he was to get into office? I'm really being funny, but that's what I'm saying. If you're going to pick a side as Christians, and by the way, it's kind of amazing to me that from the Republican side, now he just said that it took the Republicans to push the Civil Rights Bill into act. Well, why didn't any of the previous Republican presidents push for the civil rights? Why did it take the act of a Democratic president? And agreed, who up until that time, most of the party were racist. So why in history did we not have that? I think Lincoln was a Republican. So from Lincoln on, Lincoln who freed the slaves, how many Republican presidents, Republican Congress and Senate, how many, let's see here, that's not, how many, I'm trying to look up something here. Again, how many presidents, excuse me, how many Republican presidents, I'm kind of distracted, I'm trying to look up something, but how many, I'm trying to look up to see if I just want to make sure that Lincoln was, I think he was a Republican. Excuse me. But how many what the heck here? How many Republican presidents since Lincoln advocated for civil rights? All right, let me get back.
That their children. This is exactly what the party wants. So it is a party of death when it comes down to it. It is a party that is against black families. Look at the history of the family from slavery, which were Democrat plantation owners. In slavery, they separated our families. They would not even acknowledge the marriages of black families. They would even take a black man over here who called himself being married to a woman, but if he was a big, strong guy, they took him and made him mate with another woman. That's one of the reasons our marriages and our families have not been strong, because the spirit of that has passed down generationally.
Let's stop for a moment and deal with that. First of all, slavery was instituted before any party. So the ideology of slavery in America, okay, began centuries before, carried over into the founding of this, the founding of this nation. So the ideology that produced the mentality of slavery, both blacks and whites were contaminated by that evil practice. Now, so you can't say it's a democratic thing, that slavery, the mentality of slavery, when that the effect of it on black, because you also got to look at the effect of it on white people. In other words, so then that passed on from centuries past 1776. So then you come 246 years after slavery began on this continent to the Civil War that fought and freed slavery. So then you go, what was the mentality? Because remember, racism was all over this nation. It wasn't just the Democrats. If you want to heap high praise on white Republicans or Northerners, you're misguided. Then, then you have to look at what he's talking about doing the family. Again, when he says, well, I think I cut him off. I'm gonna let him finish, but to try to make the institution of slavery and racism and the impact as a democratic thing is just plain wrong, misinformation. I want him to say something else, and I want to respond to something.
Not always had strong family structures like we should have.
Well, that's because of slavery. That's because of racism. So after 1865, African Americans had to fight still against the legal constitutional racism of America, both in the North and the South. More heavy, more so in the South under Jim Crow. Okay, so but here's the thing that I'm going to say as a sidebar. The Democratic Party, of course, was a party of racism. So now you ask yourself a question, since they were rejected by the Democratic Party, when did blacks become accepted in the Democratic Party and why? Okay, all right.
We did good up in the early 1900s, 1920, 30. Our families were pretty good and pretty strong during that time. But what happened was they bought the war on poverty. This was Democrat. Bought the war on poverty. You know what they did? They gave money to fix a problem. So they had programs, they gave welfare, but they took one key out that they understood was the key to the family. They took the man out of the home. Ladies, we'll give you the money, but you can't have a man in your house. That means the children now were robbed of them having a father.
So let's address that, because again, it's one of the most I want to say egregious misinformation. Who, when you say we did good in terms of the family, the solid family. Okay, so from the 1865 to 1965, as they would say, well, the black family was strong. Okay, and then they say this is a talking point. See, this is the problem. It's a talking point because if you tell me that the African American family now is in disarray, does that include you, Apostle, your family, your wife, your children? So let's back up. Watch this. You're not affected. You have a family intact with children. So who are you talking about? So let's kind of back up. So are you telling me that in 1965 that the Democratic Party came along and says, let's break up the black family by giving them welfare? That's how we're going to do it. We're going to give them welfare and we're going to take the father out and hola, we're going to destroy the black family. Now, mind you, you're not destroying the black vote. Okay? So if that was their plan, and then you say, well, why was it important for us to destroy the black family? Why is that so important? You're not destroying votes. Studies have already proven that black fathers, from single black fathers who are not married to the baby mamas, are more active in their children's life, right? So then let's go back. Wait a minute. So then say, so here's this diabolical plan to destroy the black family. So then you got to say, why are they doing that? What benefit to them is it going to be to destroy the black family? Is it to rob votes? No. Now, prison, on the other hand, he's not going to talk about that, but prison, that's another story. That destroys not only the family, but the prison life destroys votes. You can't vote as a convicted felon. But let's get back to the black family stuff, right? The black family, the immorality of the black family, which I can't help but to say, you're pushing Trump, who is 3 times married, cheated each time on his wife, had to pay out millions in a settlement. I digress. Go back to this black family. So the black family was decimated by the Dems, and their aim was to destroy the nuclear family, which before 1965 we were doing well. Strong black families. So then it gave us welfare, you know, and all of a sudden welfare destroyed the black family. What black families did it destroy? What was the black unemployment rate back in the 60s? Wasn't it around 10%? So who was receiving the welfare that destroyed the black families? And just so we're clear, the aim wasn't to say we're going to take the man out. The aim was if you're receiving government assistance, and I'm not saying that everyone's always right, but I'm just saying you have to look at if you're saying, if you go down and you say, here's a good example. You go down and say, I'm going to collect welfare. So you're saying, I need help. That's, the idea is assistance. So then they sit down and they tell you, well, in a nutshell, why do you need the assistance? Tell me your condition. I'm not working. I'm sick. Disability or whatever. So when they say, okay, we're going to give you assistance, then they're going to say, are you married? Well, yes. Is your husband working? That's what they're going to ask you. Now, if you're married and your husband is working, they're going to say, no, we're not going to give you assistance. But then if you say, well, my husband is not working, the question still was, are able-bodied people able to work as opposed to get on assistance? Now, again, I'm not saying that was a perfect executed program. But let's kind of go back and say, well, who then was receiving the welfare. It was the unemployed. It was those that struggled financially. But if the unemployment rate was around 10%, and let's just say 15%, I mean, 85% of Americans were working. Were they affected by the welfare? Were they affected by the decimation of the black family? See, the idea of them saying that is a talking point. So understand that it's a talking point. The Democrats destroyed the black family. His black family is not destroyed. So what destroyed the black family? Divorce. If you're going to go greater than low income or impoverished, what really destroys families? Divorce, right? And then if you go back and you say, okay, the black family, we can also get into, well, what's the quality of black families? Were there infidelity? Was it like always the black version of Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best? You know, those white mythical 50s image of the family. Who were the families? See, again, and then of course, if you're going to tell me about the Republicans, woohoo! Let's talk about some of these, like Moms for Liberty. You know, behind the scenes, swingers, what they call the swingers, the gay activity that's going on. Okay, let's go on here. Like I say, and let's not forget Trump. All right, who is no family man. All right.
So that kept, once again, another policy that has hurt our families. And then even today, Black Lives Matter, which was
I'm going to go back to that in a moment, but again, we said hurt our families. Again, whose families, whose families were hurt? Well, and again, and why? Now again, there was some I'm going to say racist treatment by people. But we get that all the time. Like you walk into a bank and a bank or a credit union, you get denied a loan, not because they're Democrats, but because they're racist. But again, that's that's a segment of society. That's a segment of the black community. In 1965, do you tell me that all or most of the black families was destroyed by welfare? Then you would have to say that most of the black community was on welfare during this time and since that time.
welfare, but they took one key out that they understood was the key to the family. They took the man out of the home. Ladies, we'll give you the money, but you can't have a man in your house. That means the children now were robbed of, of them having a father.
Now, here's the problem with this whole talking point. First of all, sin is the problem because you can have fathers in the home and you still pretty much every mass shooter, or I'll put it like this, most of the mass shooters have came from two-parent homes. See, the apostle, what gospel, what kingdom are you promoting here? You're pushing a talking point that's so filled with misinformation. It's just unbelievable that as you should be preaching the truth here.
So that kept, once again, another policy that has hurt our families. And then even today, Black Lives Matter, which was also supported by the Democratic Party, did not, they had in their particular policies that they were against the nuclear family that had the father at the head. They did not believe in patriarchy. And so we look down through the years and we've seen the party destroy.
I'm going to say, so what? he brings up, and this is again, this is a, and by the way, the reason why Republicans hate Black Lives Matter is because again, they hate critical race theory, all of that. He's pushing these anti-Black sentiments. First of all, Black Lives Matter was an organization that was started because of police brutality, which, by the way, since you're pushing Trump, he already said he would bring back stop and frisk, which means you, the Black people in your church, in your community, would be subject to police stopping and frisking you at will, not according to the Constitution. And under the old Constitution, stop and frisk policies that was overturned by the Supreme Court, was that they said, look, by the stats, 90% of the people stopped were Black and brown people. 90%. They didn't go up on Wall Street. They didn't go in white neighborhoods. They didn't. White people wasn't being stopped and frisked. 90% of the time. 85% of the time, they found no just reason or any reason justified by the law for the stop. But they had the power to stop. And the racism became evident by the stats that the majority of the people that were violated were Black and brown people. And Trump, who you are pushing, right? Who you are pushing, said he would bring back stop and frisk. He said he would strengthen qualified immunity, meaning that if the police shot one of your members' children, they would get away with it because they have qualified immunity. That's what you're pushing. Black Lives Matter was started because of police brutality. They were a activist organization, a social activist organization. For that, they were not a Christian organization. They never claimed to be a Christian organization. So you tell me then, let's remove Black Lives Matter. Tell me the Republican that would push for police reforms, for the police injustice, unless you believe that there is no police, you know, unless you believe that there is no police brutality, misconduct, racism, then of course you'd be lying on the very police themselves. But that's what Black Lives Matter was for. And then when you want to put them up, my point is, so what their ideology is? The benefit is that they brought police brutality to the forefront. That's why. They had nothing to do with Christianity. Nor were they trying to do anything else. And, okay. And again, what is the point of bringing Black Lives Matter into this? I know why Tucker Carlson and Fox News and them do, but why are you, the Black pastor, who think that they don't think the same thing about you?
Our families, and people don't see it because they don't understand truth. Now, somebody wrote me and they said,
all right, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to pick it up in part 4. And we're going to go on. Again, it's going to be a long series, as I said, because I'm dissecting, as you can see. There's so much misinformation. And you know what's interesting is that as he sits in his pulpit, in his church, and like I say, 63,000 views so far, and it's climbing every day. So what's interesting about this, people are going to automatically assume that he's telling the truth. They're going to automatically believe that what he said is gospel truth. That's just the nature of it. Rarely, very few people will actually challenge what a pastor would say. First of all, they would fear being ostracized. That's why. And so and then secondly, they're just that gullible to believe that whatever the pastor says is truth, which is not. Most of what he's saying is just misinformation. And he's saying this in a pulpit to a church. That's what he's feeding them. instead of feeding them the truth. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I do mean that all comments are welcome. We can debate. We can, and at the end, we can agree to disagree. Agree to disagree in love. All right, guys, see you in part 4.